Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, guys. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're with us today. So, today we're going to be talking about discovering our purpose, helping our teens discover their purpose to give meaning to life. I think this is a really important topic. And we have Dr. Monica Coronel, and she is a business person who has found a passion in emotional intelligence. And so, she's going to help us to talk about understand this idea of purpose and what it means, and is it something we already have or that we discover, and where do we find it? And with that, we're going to get to Monica.
Thank you, Grace. It is my pleasure.
Yes. Okay. So, let's talk about this. You're somebody who has a lot of knowledge about emotional intelligence. And I think that's something that can really weave into helping our teens find a purpose and being in touch with themselves. But I think in these days, it seems harder to be a teen. There's a lot of demands, a lot of different things. So what do you think? Why do you think having a direction as a teen is so important?
Well, first of all, I would like to invite everybody to just rethink that statement that being a teen is hard. I think
Okay,
it's
yeah.
the most beautiful stage in our lives because we start to become independent.
Yeah.
We start to explore the world and we start to give meaning to our life, to life in general. And we start to question, why am I here? What is my life? So I think it's a beautiful stage in life. And we, as adults, I encourage adults to always set that mindset that you are going through a beautiful stage in your life. It's so exciting. I know there are challenges because we go through biological changes. And of course, when we start to get independent, there are many questions, there are fears. We need to, connect with ourselves in ways that we didn't need to before.
Sure.
So, of course, it is a challenging stage in our lives, but it's so exciting, it's so beautiful. And I think that as parents, the best thing we can offer to our teens is the space, a safe space. Learn to be present. Learn to hold a safe space for them so they feel free to be who they are. But for example, my son, he tends to come to us for guidance. And that is beautiful because there is a connection between us. So I think that more than focusing as parents of how do I give my children direction is more, how do I hold a safe space for them? And that requires presence.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your advice on that? Like, how do we do that? I think a lot of times we want to give them lots of advice, and try to shape who they're becoming, probably because we're having maybe the teenage years are hard for parents, right? Of that's the smart part that is really hard. But also still beautiful, right? Like the parents are doing, like, what they're doing is guiding their kid to becoming who they are and being able to embrace that. But how do you think we do that presence piece with our teens?
Yes, and I appreciate that you asked the question because that's the beginning of everything, actually. It's I think that being a parent is the most challenging thing that we go through in life. It is a choice, and sometimes it's not a choice, but it is a choice when we realize that we are a parent and there is no way around it. So we might go through different life situations, and when we find a way to embrace being a parent from our heart, it is easier. It definitely requires lots of energy and lots of awareness, because our kids, I think that my son is my teacher, and he has led me through a path of self-discovery, actually. Because when I realized how unprepared I was to be a mother, I started to question myself, and I said, no, I need to do better than this. And thanks to that, I started my own journey. The best advice I can give to parents is embrace that you're a parent and ask yourself, what is what are my children, what is my child showing me about myself that I have not taken care of, that I have not nurtured, that I haven't healed? We all go through different situations in life, and we have a model of how to be a parent. And most of the time, our parents made mistakes. We all make mistakes.
Yes, absolutely.
And we should learn from them, from those mistakes. So it's about be willing to go in and do our inner work.
Yeah, that makes sense. So being in a place that we're capable of being present is like we're coming to it as healed as we can. I mean, and growing as we can and open. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes, and if I may, let me add something. In my own journey, the way I create presence is through meditation, yoga, writing, walking in nature, but is having that awareness that I need to cultivate that presence. And it's a choice. Again, we are bombarded with information. Life is very challenging. And as a parent, with that responsibility, we have to take care of so many things. So it is very challenging to have the energy to be a present parent. But I also know that when we start that journey and we become aware, remember that we are habitual beings. So everything is a habit. If I make it a habit to practice mindfulness every day, we start to develop that ability until it becomes part of us. So be present. For example, my son is asking me a question. Put the cell phone down and really look into his eyes and listen, really listen to it. What is he saying? What is he asking? What does he need from me? And read the body language, read the tone of the voice. What is he or she really telling me? That is presence, and they feel it, and they feel that connection. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that's so important, because I do think that we live in a very busy culture, and it seems like we celebrate the more busy you are, the better. I'm not sure that that's the right place, right, for all of us, that I think, but it does keep us from being able to be present when we're trying to do 5,000 tasks at one time. And makes it hard for us to be present for our kids, to hear what they're actually telling us. Yeah, that's really good advice. So when we talk about like helping teens find a purpose for themselves, what does that really mean? Like, what does it mean for them to have a purpose?
Well, it means a lot of things, but let's start that when we touch with our higher purpose, basically we are talking about giving meaning to life. Why am I here, right? And oftentimes we don't ask those questions because basically because we haven't been taught about that.
Sure. Yeah.
We don't have that role model, for example. Those are not the questions that we generally learn in school or at home. And but there is a point in life when we should ask ourselves those questions as parents, so we can guide them to ask themselves that question. And it happens again intentionally. If I want to give guidance to my children about life purpose, and I haven't even questioned myself, why am I here? How can I guide them?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a big gap. That's why we don't go there, because we don't do that with ourselves.
Yeah.
So as parents, we have to assume our role and we have to embody it. And we really need to go deeper into things that maybe we haven't considered before.
Sure.
And who am I and why am I here are the most important things in life. I think basically the self-mastery it should be our main purpose, because it is from that point that we can guide them as well. If we don't know what is to connect with our purpose, because it's not finding a purpose, it's connecting with a purpose, because we already know our purpose. It's just that we don't have it in our consciousness, but it's there. That's the journey of the human being, to reconnect with the purpose of life, the mission in life, because we all came here to I don't want to say do something, but to manifest our life purpose. And it generally has to do with serving others. So whatever we choose to do in life, career, vocation, whatever it is that is involved in serving others, that's a good signal that we are in the way to our purpose.
Yeah, so there's a lot of thought that needs to go along with this, right? So I think, to help our teens find their purpose, we as parents have to find ours, and like to really dig into how to get in connection with that, of figuring that part out and asking questions to ourselves. I love that you said journaling, being in nature is great, right? It's just good for our mind too, but it gives us the freedom to like think about things. And then we model that for our kids and our
Exactly.
teens. And then
Exactly.
they're able to kind of do those things. What do you think? I mean, it sounds like, I asked the question a minute ago about like, why is it so important to have a purpose? And I think maybe your answer is, it is maybe our role in life is to live into our purpose.
It is. It is, and it's more than thinking about it. I think that when we have that point of departure, I have to sit and think about my purpose in life, then we get in a rabbit hole, because in my own experience, the way I got to my purpose in life is feeling, not thinking, not really thinking.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with my heart center and my soul, because, and I'm not talking about soul in reference to religion. I am talking about soul as the essence of who we are. We are more than a physical body. I think everybody can accept that. And is that other aspect of ourselves that is not tangible, but is very real. And sometimes we have lost that connection because, first of all, they don't teach us how to connect with our soul. Sometimes when we talk about soul, is basically religion. And we are in a world that values more the rational mind than to connect with our feelings, for example, on our emotions, which I consider that our emotions are the voice of our soul. Our soul speaks through us, through our emotions. So when we teach our kids to connect with their body, that is essential, because emotions are chemicals. Emotions are energies that flow through our body. And those energies affect our organs and our systems with emotional information. When we start to pay attention to our emotion, which is paying attention to the sensations in our body, then we start to recognize that inner voice that is always there guiding us. So one way to see it is through emotional intelligence. Pay attention to your emotions and the way that your body feels. Because, for example, anger feels hot. Fear feels maybe tight. Nervousness feels like you have a knot in your stomach or in your throat. When we teach our kids to identify emotions in that way, we are paving the way to connect with the soul. So that's one way we can do it as parents.
Yeah, I think that's hard. What advice do you have in this part of recognizing those feelings? Like, how do parents get themselves educated about this idea of, because I don't think that that's innate. And I'm like thinking as a therapist myself, I'm like, I say, like, how does your body feel, and recognizing those things, but I don't know that I present to them like, oh, it could feel like this at a time where we're maybe not having that feeling. Like, that's something that I feel like I could grow in. So like, talk to me about what your thoughts are about, like, how do parents get more information about how to get that connection between the feeling word and the body sensation?
Okay, that's a great question. Well, content is, is abundant right now. We can find information everywhere. And when I was going through my journey, when I started practicing emotional intelligence years ago, even before I decided to pursue a PhD in the area, I questioned myself and I said, how do I apply this? Because theory is one thing, but applying is a different thing.
Sure.
So to make it a story short, during the pandemic, I started to ask myself, how can I support others that are really suffering through this? And since I am very passionate about emotional intelligence and connecting with my heart and my soul and neuroscience and mindfulness, I designed a tool that I call 1 minute of self-reflection. And I started sharing about that on social media. People started to asking me about it. And I say, how can I bring these people together? So I opened a WhatsApp group where I bring everybody who is interested in practicing together. And it's been there since the pandemic. The WhatsApp group got to the maximum capacity, and then I opened a Telegram, Telegram. Yes? Yes, Telegram is the other platform. And what I'm trying to say is I discovered in my own journey that I need a tool that I can practice every single day. So I designed this tool. How does it work? What I recommend is that you set 3 alarms in your cell phone indefinitely until it becomes a habit. And the thing is, every time that the alarm goes off, we stop doing whatever we are doing. It is possible if we want to do it for at least 1 minute. And when we pause, we are creating these intentional pauses during our day. We are creating a space to really connect with ourselves instead of going in autopilot, because that's what we do most of the time. When we pause, I recommend that we take 1, 2 deep breaths. Breathing is a wonderful exercise, is a wonderful tool that we have to exercise connection with our inner world and help us reset our nervous system. So taking deep breaths help us become present and to gain clarity. When that happens, ideally, we close our eyes so we don't get distracted, and we ask ourselves 3 questions. What emotions are present? We scan our body, we just mentioned. For example, tight jaw or neck and shoulders that feel tense, or I feel maybe a knot in my heart, on my throat, on my stomach, or I feel my body that is dense and is like carrying something heavy, or I feel light because I am experiencing joy, Then what feelings are present? And I go to the mental experience and I name it. I see anger, I see frustration, I see anxiety, I see joy, I see happiness, etc. And finally, what thoughts am I having right now? And when I am aware of what my mind is constructing, because the mind is very creative, and we have around 80,000 thoughts per day. But the thing is that 98% of them are repetitive. So basically, we keep recycling thoughts. Basically, if we buy a story, we just keep repeating the story.
Mm-hmm.
And when we become aware of that, we say, wow, do I really have that tendency to negativity or pessimism? That is what is draining me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how can I self-regulate? Because that's the idea of being emotional awareness, that then we gain the power back. Now we can choose to stay in those emotional states or to give power to mental stories or not. And then as we practice this every single day and becomes a habit, we are creating emotional awareness. We are creating regulation, emotional regulation. We develop our empathy. We connect much better with other people because we are more present and we are more aware of also other people's emotions. So we become more empathic, more connected, more present. That's the way we do it.
Yeah. And then day after day, just like being more aware in our bodies of that information. What do you, so when you think about, if we were talking to like teens specifically and helping them find their purpose, what advice do you have for them to kind of walk into this journey? So like whether they have a parent who is connected and involved in this process, or maybe they're not, right? And they would have to kind of go down this path by themselves. Like, what advice do you have for teens in finding their purpose?
All right. It's important to remember again that it's about connection. It's not finding anything, because when we phrase it that way, we immediately internalize that it's somewhere out there, far away from me.
Yeah.
And it's not that.
Yes.
It's here with us.
Yes.
So it's connection. How do I
Yeah.
connect with that is already in me, in myself, in my inner world, and my soul, basically? When we have dysfunctional families, or we just have distant parents, or we have very busy parents that are not present, it is hard to have a role model and say, oh, that's the way I connect. Or we are the product of our environment. That's what it is. We are the product of our environment. So as teenagers, if we see that our parents, and we feel it more than have it rationalize it, is feel that they are present, that they are connected, feeling that my parents are happy with their life and they have a meaningful life and they are living that meaningful life. When we don't have that, and I didn't have that, and that is the incongruence here, is that I didn't have that, but since I was young, I asked myself, who am I, why I'm here? And I kept asking for many years and searching. And at the end, I was able to connect with my purpose when I started to have mystical experience. But that's another issue, another subject. And the way we can do that in a conscious way, and again, it is hard when we are teenagers because we are all over the place. We are actually exploring and trying to understand and give meaning to life. And if we don't have that role model, it's harder. But sometimes difficulties in life also help us to connect with our inner truth. So what I would say, if you are a teenager and you're really asking yourself, why am I here? Is to practice mindfulness, is to practice breath work. Breath work is an amazing way to connect with our inner world as well. Journaling, many teenagers like journaling. And as a parent, have conversations with them and in an intentional way. ask them, why do you think, or what do you think is your life purpose, or what is meaningful for you in life?
Mm-hmm.
What awakens in you that the fire, that sensation of, I want to live this life. I love this life. I want to express myself in this way, or that other way, or that other way. So is what teenagers, I think, is conversation after conversation after conversation, is example, is about showing them how to live in purpose. And if they are really interested in asking themselves the questions, they can go through breath work, journaling, practice mindfulness, self-awareness, which is essential so we can understand and give meaning to my life.
Yeah. I mean, you're opening my eyes to so many things. I love this conversation because just thinking about like how I can transform this just in my own life is so valuable, but thinking about raising my own kids too. So, I mean, sometimes I find that teens can also, or people in general, but since we're talking about teens, like that can be resistant to doing this work. And maybe they view it as unimportant or hard, or I don't know, they have some resistance to that. How do you as a parent support, or what is your advice around this? Like if you as a parent recognize how important this is, you're doing your own work, you're trying to facilitate these conversations, but your teen is kind of resistant to that conversation, how do you get them to soften around that? Do you have any advice around that piece?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. So we can tackle this question from different perspectives. First of all, is ask myself as a parent, why is so difficult for me that my teenager is resistant to it?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why is so difficult for me to digest that, right? Because it is hard. It is hard. It's easier when our kids just go along with everything we want and we say, right? But we can also look at it from a different perspective. How wonderful that they are resistant,
Mm-hmm.
because they are showing their sovereignty. And we don't want them to lose their sovereignty, because if we trying to impose ourselves, somebody else will do as well in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want them to be easy to manipulate, or just to accept everything that an adult tell them, right?
Sure.
So wonderful that they resist. Yes, it's hard. It makes my life more challenging as a parent.
Sure.
But wonderful that they are sovereign. And when we depart from that perspective, then and we take care of our relationship, because kids resist for many reasons. One is because maybe you are pushing them out of their comfort zone and they feel uncomfortable and they don't know how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So guide them, if that's the case. Be there for them. The other reason they resist is because they see incongruence. We are telling them something, but we are not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Third, we don't have a close relationship with them, an authentic relationship. Four, we are not a good listener. We don't know how to listen to them. So they feel that they feel that resistance because they feel misunderstood. And all of this together creates that resistance. Also, let's understand something. If we ask a teenager, what is their life purpose? Wow, that's a big question, because not even most of the adults don't have the answer for that. So let's keep in mind all of this, and let's try to connect with our children in the best way we feel, to have conversations that open the space for them to consider exploring their the meaning of life and why they are here and what is their purpose. But it's a big question that requires, as I say, many adults don't have the answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sometimes I think teens are resistant too because they are afraid of how their parents may respond, right, to what they say. Like they're not actually listening, like the things that you said, that can kind of get in the way. And so it's like if a teen was to say, like, I feel like my purpose is in the arts, right? Like I am here to create something beautiful and amplify beauty or whatever. Like, let's say that's what they had said. And the parents' response is, you'll never be able to make any money like that.
Exactly.
Right. Of saying they're assigning a value to that. And I know that is hard because as parents, we want our kids to succeed. We want them to live a life that is fulfilling, but sometimes what we see it as, and maybe what that child's purpose or how they're going to create meaning to their life is different than what we imagine. And so I think there's a grief process sometimes for parents too in that. And then teens feel that, like, oh, my mom or dad will be disappointed if I say this is what I'm going to do. And so then they don't want to share it with us. And so sometimes that might be the resistance. They feel called or pushed in a direction to do something that gives them meaning, or is, opens their mind or makes them feel good about themselves. And that is not something that they feel like their parents are going to accept, or in honesty, their parents won't accept, because they have a dream for their kid. And so I think that can make that piece hard too. This has been so enlightening. Like, I love thinking about this. I think there is a lot of thought that parents can have and teens can have around this idea, because I think we all are in a journey, right, to identify, connect with our purpose. And so that's hard. We're not going to just like oh, here it is. I found it, right? Like it's more of, like you've said, an exploration of ourselves to connect with that piece of us. And I like that concept. I think it's actually easier because if it's already in us, then we're not creating something, we're just connecting.
Exactly. That's the key. And when we understand that as parents, we can help them understand to them as well. And in regards of what you just mentioned, I understand that the way the world works is it can feel really inflexible if you want. Sure. And sometimes we feel pushed to make decisions that are not 100% aligned with our with that inner purpose, because it's not practical. That's the truth. But on the other way, we also should, as parents, we should reevaluate our beliefs and the way we see life. In general, we see life as a straight line. And life is like this, is up and downs. And we are in a new era. We must embrace a multi-dimensional line instead of a straight line. Because it is true that we have those beliefs in place. Oh, music or art, where are you going to find a teacher? You are not going to get, have the salary that is going to sustain the life that you want, for example. But let me ask you this question. How many adults right now are 100% satisfied with their careers and their jobs?
I mean, I don't know a number to that, but I would say not many.
Not many.
Yeah.
Not many. And every day I confirm this. If we have the time, let me give you an example. The other day I met a woman, a very nice and beautiful woman in every aspect. She went to Northwestern and then to Kellogg. So he got, elite education. Sure. And she has a great job. But then we started talking about kids and life, and I was sharing that I was traveling, and that since we are now empty nested, we have that freedom. And she started to share with me in a very candid way that she feels very nostalgic about the time when she was single, because she used to just pack a backpack and go wherever she wanted to go. And now she has 3 kids. So I could feel it in her body that she was exhausted, that she was depleted energetically. Of course, we love our kids, but we are not allowed to say, oh my God, I feel so tired. I feel exhausted. I wish I had a vacation, just me and nobody else. So we cannot express ourselves. And when we live like that, our children perceive that, even if we don't tell them. So and I always hear these stories when I have a one-to-one session with people, and they speak about their parents, as I knew, for example, they tell me, I knew that they were exhausted all the time. I know that they rather be at the beach or traveling or whatever instead of having to take care of me. So we perceive that, even that we don't say it. So the best way, is to have the awareness that we need to find ways to replenish ourselves. And I'm not talking about a spa or a massage or a facial, which is nice, why not? But I'm talking about doing this inner work so we connect with the vital force of life and we live from that place. So our energy is never depleted. Yeah. That's the key. We are always running on empty. We are trying to do more than we humanly can, and then we resent, and that shows. Even if we don't say it.
Yeah, that's such a good thought to reflect on. So do you think, like, as somebody that has been working on connecting with your purpose in life and meaning and growing in that way, do you find that you have more energy for life?
Oh, of course, because let me tell you something. What I've discovered is that when I connected with my purpose, is I started to notice like a threefold effect, if you wish. I felt really energized in my body. My energy level went up. My ability to be open and loving and compassionate with myself and with others went to the roof. And as a consequence, I started to enjoy my working life because I am very passionate about what I do.
Yeah.
And I know it, because it's a knowing. It's not something we think about. It's a knowing. Our purpose, we know it in our body. We know it in our soul, in our mind, in everything. So when we live life from connection with our purpose and in life and the mission that we came to fulfill, we feel energized. We are, because we love it. We just love doing it.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's an indicator, right? Like if we're really tired, that probably means we're out of sync with our meaning in life, right? Like our direct purpose, and maybe that, like, the way that works, because sometimes it's like we have natural consequences, right? Like as a parenting mode, sometimes I let natural consequences be the guide, right? Like where you don't fill up your water or forget your water, right? So then it's like you have to figure that out. Like obviously I want my kids to have water and not be thirsty, but like there's only so many times I can ask them to put their water in their backpack or whatever. But maybe the natural consequence of getting out of sync is actually exhaustion depression, sadness, right? Like those
It is.
pieces. And the goal of that is to redirect us back
Exactly.
to where we will find more positive feelings. So we're out of sync. That's a good, I like that thought. Instead of being negatively impacted or feeling really negative about that, it's like, oh, this is my guide. This is the guardrail that's to try to bring me back to the lane that is going to bring me that purpose. And I think about, parenting and how, people find themselves in midlife crisis. And, that part is also the guardrail to say, like, reevaluate, reassess. And then maybe instead of thinking about that negatively, it's like, oh, what a blessing to be able to redirect now, to get back to what is going to bring me joy and happiness now instead of later, right? Or to miss out on that opportunity completely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you think? What have you really learned in your journey of self-discovery and connecting with your meaning in life that you want to share with people?
Well, I'll say that I learned that life is not a straight line, that I must change my beliefs about that, and that I needed to open myself to different possibilities. And something that it can be very frustrating when we think about living a purposeful life is that we think that everything is going to be as we envision it. And sometimes, and most of the time, the self-mastery that I mentioned at the beginning is full of detours. So, because that's the way we learn and that's the way we evolve.
Yeah.
So embrace those instead of getting frustrated. Evaluate the illusion that we have control over our life, because we don't. Of course, we need some kind of compass, I say, is what I have learned to integrate in my life. Remind myself that I have a compass and that I am going to allow myself to be guided more than getting into or falling into the illusion that I have control. Because more than one time in my life, I've been shown that I don't have control at all. So I have learned to navigate life. And I think that my practice of self-awareness and emotional awareness every single day until it became a habit and a new way of living my life is essential, because I am aware that I am getting frustrated. I am aware that I am resistant. I am aware that I am angry about life not being perfect for me. So I learned to breathe. I learned to stop, to pause, to breathe, and to connect and say, okay, let's reconnect with my compass and say where it is leading me to. Learn to navigate, basically. It's like, I usually use this metaphor is, imagine that you are the captain of a boat or a ship, and you know your craft, you are knowledgeable about it, but you also know that you cannot resist the waves. You cannot impose or control how the waters are going to move, right? You learn to navigate. And when you learn to navigate skillfully, you are a better captain. And that requires a lot of skills that, unfortunately, we have to learn by ourselves. And most of the time we question and we start to explore those abilities when we are in trouble, when we feel that life is hard and we get frustrated. So learning flexibility, learning to let yourself guide is something that is hard, especially when we live in a culture that is always constantly telling us that we should be in control of our life and that we are the ones that decide which way goes our life, which it is true, but it's also true that we don't have control about everything. And I have to learn to reconnect with my heart center because I was closed. And most of the time we build walls around our heart because we think and believe that way we are going to keep safe. We are going to be safe. We are going to prevent ourselves to getting hurt again. What I've learned is to accept that I am going to get hurt again and that I will be able to handle it. And learn that pain has a meaning and has a purpose and is part of life. So when we learn to integrate all of these and we embrace it instead of resisting it, life is much easier, it's more enjoyable, and we can truly live in purpose in a way that allow us to flow with life instead to work hard. Yeah,
it's harder to resist. It's easier to go with the wave versus to risk against it. And sometimes I feel like, I felt this way in my own life. I don't know if you felt this, where life seems to be leading you in a direction that you were not planning for. And, like you can resist it and try really hard, but sometimes we end up back there anyways. And right, like it kind of takes us that direction. And but most of the time when I think about that in my own life, it's good, right? Like feeling like I can trust myself, or like listen to the internal part of me of like where I can go, where to accept challenge. Yeah, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I hope that your audience finds it helpful somehow. And I know that being a parent is very challenging, but it's so beautiful as well. And when I started to make the switch and say, what's my son teaching me? Everything changed. So instead of asking myself, why is this happening to me? I said, what is this for? And that changes dramatically. So basically what I'm saying is everything is about how we see life. Yeah. It's mindset. And that we can train that. We can absolutely reevaluate our beliefs and transmute it and make them work for us. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for your time today. Thank you. It was a great pleasure to meet you.
Thanks again, Monica. That was really great information. I don't know about you, but I am invigorated to start thinking about purpose and how it works and how it functions, and these opportunities to do self-discovery. Way more today than I have ever been before. And I am so excited to think about these different areas that Dr. Coronel had brought up to help kind of guide us in that direction of talking about this purpose so that I can be that type of catalyst and supportive person for my own children, but also in my practice. I think this idea of our purpose is already in us. It's not something we have to find, is actually a relief. And I'm excited to see what that means for me, but also you. Please rate and subscribe to our show. Please like us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and send us emails for future episode topics that you'd like to have covered. We're going to do some episodes coming up where you guys get to ask the experts some questions, whether it's me or some other experts. We are going to answer some parent questions and we would love them. So please email those to us at accidentalexperts@gmail.com. Have a fantastic day. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.